Hi, this is Claudia Filos with the Center for Atlantic Studies, and we're here today for with Gregory Nagy and Keystone for HeroesX Office Hours. Thank you for joining us, Keith and Greg.
It's such a pleasure.
Oh.
Okay, well, let's get right to it. So today we're going to talk about several topics. The first thing I thought we might talk about is the Hour 17 discussion question, Greg.
Yes.
And maybe, Keith, can you prompt us about that question, just to remind everybody what the question was that Greg had proposed?
Yeah, let's read it. In the Libation Bearers and in the Eumenides of Aeschylus, the idea of shedding human blood is frequently described by the characters as if this idea is the equivalent of an animal sacrifice. Are these characters right or wrong in making such descriptions?
So, Greg, can you tell us a little bit about why maybe you chose this question?
Sure. It goes back to a book by Walter Burkert, B-U-R-K-E-R-T, called Homo Necans, H-O-M-O, and then N-E-C-A-N-S. And in this book, this great expert in Greek religion shapes the idea that we humans sacrifice animals and then cut up and cook and eat their meat as a ritual response to our human capacity to kill other humans. Let's not worry for the moment about whether Burkert's theory is right or wrong, but I do think it has something to say about why human sacrifice is presented in Greek mythology as something that is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's just plain wrong. It's morally wrong. It violates the cosmos, yet people do it. And then, in compensation for doing it, what happens after that is, for the rest of time, and that is now in our era, in the so-called present, in the post-heroic age, we make up for that wrong of a human sacrifice by sacrificing instead animals. So animals take the place of humans. And I find that in the libation bearers of Aeschylus, the terminology is really mixed up. Characters keep talking about sacrifice of animals as if it were sacrifice of humans and vice versa. So they're confused. And I think that confused language, which then extends also into Aeschylus's libation bearers and Aeschylus's Eumenides, is a situation where actually people just have it wrong back then in the heroic age. People confuse human sacrifice and animal sacrifice. And we in the present, looking back at those myths, we've got it right. And we know why we do animal sacrifice.
Right. I mean, for me, the things that you're saying, I think the community picked up on so much of that. In general, I think people felt that it was problematic to make those associations. Although we do have one participant who I'm actually really grateful sort of took a different position.
Sure.
Which is great. Like, I just love that people can come in on the board, right? Just, you know what I mean? So Pendlebury comes in and says, it sort of is talking about, he thinks that since humans are rational, it's understandable that they were making that mistake, that the two sacrifices are equalized. And so he is pointing us towards really the idea of the symbolism of the sacrifice.
Yes.
In that case, he feels that it's about shedding human blood. But I also want to point to another discussion thread that we talked about briefly in our preparatory meeting, which was the post by Rebbe Cape, C-R-E-B-E-C-A-I-P. The title of the post is "Electra is Crazy, I Think." And I love the way he ends the post, right, which is that wording, "These people are really messed up." And so I think that's what you're getting at. And he starts his post... Right.
Oh, I agree. They're very messed up. Electra is so messed up that she really doesn't know the difference between animal sacrifice and human sacrifice.
Right.
He thinks that somehow having revenge for the murder of her father, having the shedding of human blood will be a sacrifice. Well, it isn't.
Right. And so I think one of the other things that the community is really thinking about, is this transition to tragedy, right? Where I think where we see sort of the confusion
Yes.
and the people, quote unquote, being messed up and getting it wrong, it's highlighted in a different way than in.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And but since we're talking about tragedy as a medium that's different from epic, we should point out that even in epic, there are disturbing situations where people commit human sacrifice. Example A, when Achilles sacrifices Trojan young men at the funeral of Patroclus. That's not just, oh, they used to do things that way. That's meant to be morally shocking. Similarly, when Odysseus strings up the disloyal serving women and executes them, you could say it has the sort of look and feel of a human sacrifice, and that too is not morally justifiable, I think. And I don't think poetry justified it.
I've never thought of those as instances of sacrifice necessarily, more as just revenge without the ritual overtones.
Yeah.
But here in the Oresteia, we're talking about an intermixing, and
yeah.
Like, are we to understand that Achilles then, fed the meat of these Trojan princes to the assembled Achaeans?
Oh.
But I mean, with the Odyssey scene, we know that it's happening on the feast day of Apollo, so there is.
Yeah. I grant you, dear Keith, that in the case of the Odyssey, you could say, well, what's specifically sacrificial about executing those women? And I'll have to give that more thought. But in the case of the Iliad, those Trojan young men who are killed at the funeral pyre of Patroclus, they really are equivalent to sacrificial victims. Of course, we don't then go all the way and have the victim's flesh divided up and cooked and eaten by the community. That it would be going too far, but the actual killing is sacrificial. I just thought of go ahead.
I was just going to say the allusion to a sacrificial killing is probably enough. You don't have to spell it all out.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess I'm thinking too about the climactic scene in the Iliad, where we, and this is something that you have shown, Greg. I think, and Stephen Lowenstam too. I think.
Oh yeah.
Talked about the death of Patroclus, which is sort of envisioned through the language of sacrifice, right, as if he were a sacrificial animal.
No, absolutely. In that case.
But that's a metaphor, right there.
Yeah,
or no?
You're right that it's not presented as a sacrifice. It has analogous stages. You hit the victim from behind, number one. The victim is stunned, and then you give a frontal mortal blow. That's number two, and then you cut the throat. That's number three. And in a sense, those three things all happen to Patroclus. At the hands of different heroes, but it's not presented as a human sacrifice.
And the young warriors, if you're dying in battle for your city-state, not that this is city-state times necessarily, right? I mean, I shouldn't even be talking about that. But let's say you're a young Greek person, right? And you're going to war with another community. Yeah. And you die for your community. So protecting your community. So is that and you are a therapon of Ares, right?
Yeah.
So are you a sacrifice? I mean, I'm just trying to understand the distinctions. To die in war, is that a sacrifice or no? Like we talk about it in modern times.
I know we talk
all the time as a sacrifice.
no. I would say I would rather for this discussion restrict the point of view to those situations where you really see distinct analogies to how you actually slaughter an animal in animal sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
But I just thought of another case where you have a really perverted allusion to sacrifice, where Achilles says to the dying Hector, I wish my heart could bring me to do the ultimate outrage, which is to cut you up and eat you raw. But in that case, too, it's a perversion of what would be a sacrifice, because in animal sacrifice, you cut up the flesh of the animal victim, but then you cook it before you eat it. So going back to that wonderful statement about Electra, people in the heroic age are messed up. I so agree with that.
Right. Yeah.
And then things get sorted out in the present, where people learn the distinction between myth and ritual, and where ritual makes up for the mistakes of myth.
Right. And so one of our dialogical partners did talk about that phrase, sorting out. Let's see if I can find that.
So while you're finding it, I love that distinction, Greg, that you just made, that the heroes are not, well, while they were alive, they're not role models. They're not positive role models for anybody.
No.
You don't want to be like Oedipus or...
No.
Right. So it was Quest Suzanne, and she actually raised another issue that I don't know if you want to address. She is asking, well, at the end of her quote of her post, she's asking, might the account for the murkiness in descriptions of animal and human sacrifice? Oh, might that? She's talking about, okay, sorry, let me back up a bit. Basically, she's wondering about, is there a difference in how the ancient Greeks viewed animals? Like, is it possible that they had, they viewed animals as having emotions and a closer connection to those of humans?
I remember that question, and I agree with this person who asked that question, because the way in Greek myth the golden age is imagined is that gods and humans ate the same food somehow, and get this, humans and animals talk to each other. So animals were on an equal footing, really, when it came to how to think and how to talk. And it's only with the great separation, with the messy sacrifice of Prometheus, that everybody gets separated from each other. And at that point, when animals can't talk with humans, that's when they start getting sacrificed.
Right. Wow. And so the sacrifice is really it is the means of that sorting out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think this was actually a helpful discussion. I'm thinking, Keith, what do you have? You're still thinking about something?
That story that Greg just told about Prometheus and the Great Separation is one that I would like to read. I haven't come across it yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very strange, and you really have to kind of read both the Theogony version, which is the one that gives you the big takeaway, and the Works and Days version. Prometheus figures in both, but he is the key to the separations and the sortings out, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Well, then I have come across it because I've read them both numerous times. But
I know you know it well, but it's not obvious that, for example, before Prometheus, humans and animals would be talking to each other. That we get from other sources, like the Life of Aesop.
Okay.
Which actually, those fables of Aesop will be the focus of our upcoming book club discussions at hour 25. So, and Artimeta is going to come speak to us about that as well. So that's something for people to look forward to.
That would be a real treat.
All right, I see that we had a good discussion, but I see that we want to talk about some more, and time is ticking. So let's talk about some other questions in the discussion forum. Greg, I was wondering, we were talking ahead of time about responding to Jules63, who asked, "Are laments spontaneous?" I know that I'm behind in my studies, but I'll see if I can get this answered. Are laments spontaneous? Does the lamenting person sing the words as they pop into their head, or are there formats to the lamentations?
Oh, I think that's a beautiful question. And what if I say that they're spontaneous and traditional at the same time? In other words, just because you react to a real situation doesn't mean that you can't use a specialized language. And you know how I like to say, Claudia and Keith, that when you lament, you cry while you sing and you sing while you cry. But that also means that the way you're expressing yourself is traditional. And it's just as traditional as epic or as any other form in the song culture. It's just that you're crying at the same time. And it's spontaneous in the sense that it's a real reaction to a real situation, to a reaction to real grief and sorrow, especially on the occasion of the death of a loved one. But that doesn't mean that what you say is not traditional, is not the kind of thing that people had said before you and that you learned when you were a child already.
I mean, because the things that will pop into your head within a traditional song culture like this, I mean, it's those traditional forms would be a way to help you express your grief, right? It's not that they're hindering you.
Exactly, and it's almost like asking, is jazz spontaneous? Answer, yes. It fits the moment. Or I have another one where a famous blues singer called Reuben Lacey said, you don't have to have the blues to sing the blues. Well, that, in a sense, although it seems to contradict what I was saying earlier, is really also saying that you can sing something that is sad on whatever occasion. Even when you're not feeling sad, you could sing lament. In other words, you could cry while you sing and sing while you cry. If you hate the guts of the person, you're lamenting, but you're expected to lament. So they can be crocodile tears as well, but I would say that's still spontaneous because it fits the occasion. It fits what people expect to hear when somebody dies, for example.
Right. Keith, what are your thoughts? Do you have anything to add at this point? I mean,
no, just that beautiful point. It's one of the major points of the course, I think, is the mix of spontaneity and convention. This composition and performance idea from Albert Lord and Milman Perry. So all the same continuum here.
Yeah, maybe we can point this this participant also towards the work of Margaret Alexiou. Did I say that right, Greg?
Yes.
Great. So I'm trying to think of the name of her book. It's
the ritual lament
in Greek, right?
In Greek traditions, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So we can probably share a link to where people can find that, and I think it'll be really interesting for people to see that. And the other thing we might even say is just that I think researchers have shown that everyday speech itself is formulaic.
Oh yeah.
Highly formulaic, right?
And everyday speech is as spontaneous as can be, but you still use language, you still use syntax, so there's still rules of the game. I think it's a modern problem that we think that something that is spontaneous cannot be traditional. That's why I keep harping on how spontaneity and tradition go together. And I remember Margaret Alexiou telling me that of all the laments that she ever heard, and she did a lot of ethnographic work on laments, the best one that she ever heard was in a dentist's office, where a dentist said, well, I've learned this from my female relatives, and then he started singing it, and he could just do it better than anybody else. Now you can say, well, is this spontaneous? He doesn't experience at that moment the death of a loved one, but it is spontaneous, even to remember, this is how I sing a lament. So the spontaneity is still there, even if the occasion doesn't fit perfectly. So you can see that I love the question, and I love the provocative in a good way, that this questioner uses the word spontaneous.
Yeah.
But it just gives me an opportunity to say that in traditional societies, it's not contradictory to be spontaneous and traditional.
Sure. That's beautiful. That's a beautiful response. Thank you, Greg. Shall we move on to our next set?
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good. Just time for the pictures yet?
Oh yeah. Do you want to talk about that one, Keith, or just?
Sure. Well, I forget exactly how it started, but Alexander, I forget his last name as well, posted kind of in sympathy, so to speak, with Greg's.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love those pictures.
Posted some of his pictures, which I'm not finding at the moment. I have them somewhere.
Well, there's one where Alexander and his group are entering the big gateway. Let's try that again. Are entering the big gateway, and they're exactly where the great bronze statue of Athena used to stand, the one that you could see. Well, at least you could see the spear tip and the crest of the helmet, as you were sailing around Cape Sunion, as Pausanias says. So it was a wonderful sharing of experience, and I love situations where the experience I have kind of fuses with the experience of other people who visited the same place. And yes, Alexander, it's great to be looking down from the heights of the Acropolis on the south side, and what do you see? You see the Theater of Dionysus, where the tragedies of Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides were primarily performed. You can't get better than that. So exactly. I share in the excitement and the feeling that you just can't get over it. It's so wonderful.
And I think there's more to come on that front. We want to let everyone know that you have posted some expanded comments about your trip, Greg, at Classical Inquiries.
Yes, I hope that people have a look at Classical Inquiries, which, by the way, I must repeat this, is edited by our own Claudia and Keith, which makes it even more of a pleasure for me. And the post for this past Wednesday is all about the experience of visiting the Acropolis and other such experiences.
Right. And I think community members from that trip may also post some of their experiences in the comments for that. So I hope people can check that out.
I so hope so.
Yeah, and we may get some, hopefully we'll get some of the travelers' own photos as well to intersperse into the posts.
Yes. I think this kind of sharing of experience really builds community.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe we could just talk about one other quick question since we have a few minutes. So Leucicle has posted a question, and they're wondering what kind of fear imposes law. So they're writing about what kind of fear is fear mentioned, and this is very specific, in 698 of Text F that Athena considers as a prerequisite if mortals are to behave with justice.
Yes.
I thought you might like this, Greg. So is it fear like being afraid of something and therefore avoiding it like hell? Is it fear like phobos, as described in Hour 2? A feeling of repulsion as when we see someone suffering? Or is it a kind of awe towards deities who impose decay? Do you have any thought about what kind of fear?
I think what Athena means is that if you think only in terms of civilization, where there's a court of law and where justice is distributed, that of and by itself doesn't inspire fear. That inspires admiration, maybe. But when you start thinking about how justice may involve punishment, and the punishment may involve pain and even death, even in a civilized society, then that is a primal fear, and that's why, in a symbolic way, Athena partners with the Furies, the Eumenides, with the good side of the Furies, but they're still the Furies, in that condominium of justice that we call the Athenian legal code. And the Athenian legal code has the scary fury part, along with the Olympian perspective of equity and justice in general. Those two things go together, and punishment and pain and death are part of it. So the fear is all the kinds of fear that we would think of in other situations: repulsion, feeling like running away from something, shock, all of those things.
Greg, can I just point everyone towards one more really beautiful thing that you've written about fear, which is your article about subjectivity and fear?
Oh yes, yes. I had so much fun putting that together. There I talk about sort of different dimensions of what we call by way of one word, which is fear. That when you look at the various Greek words that we translate as fear, they do divide up different ways. One is the urge to run away,
right.
Let's say pain, suffering, or death. The other one is just being stunned by the painfulness of it all. And another one is how shall I say it? Projecting what it would be if it happened to you. In other words, specifically identifying with the person who is being punished and is feeling pain and death. Well, what if it happened to me?
Right. So what we could do is we could share a link to that article in our comments section.
I would love that.
And we'll do that. And I think people will be really blown away at how beautiful this word for fear is. So I think, there are these words that, we think about madness and anger, and thankfully Lenny has written such a beautiful book, but it's so easy to hear these words and just kind of just come at them with our own perspective.
Yes.
But it's so incredibly beautiful when you talk about, I don't want to give things away, but you talk about the flight of birds can teach us that, right? I mean, it's absolutely dazzling. Let's not give it away. People should read it, okay? Because it's really, really gorgeous.
Oh, but it is that wonderful moment where something is coming at you, and that something makes birds fly away. So what will that do to you?
Yeah,
I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, it's awesome. Okay, so how are we doing, Keith? Do we have any more comments or thoughts about encouragement for the community, or just the next hours coming up?
We're still thinking specifically when people, at least in the college classroom, start feeling like they're getting back on track. Like there's this kind of conceptually challenging part, in the previous few hours when we talk about justice in various ways, and he sees of the hero, like various sides of the hero, and now we're back into more narrative kind of material, and some other motifs.
And I think your favorite tragedy is coming right up, right, Hippolytus?
It is coming up, as a matter of fact. Yes.
Yeah, we should tell people that Keith actually visited the site where myth has it. All of these things that happened to Hippolytus took place.
Yeah, it's so weird that I drove there along the edges of cliffs. But I drove my chariot in a proper manner. I did not fall into the ocean.
All right. Well, we have beautiful things coming up, and I think you're right, Keith. I think people do start to feel like they settle back in over the next couple hours if they felt a little bit sort of knocked off the path.
So much shorter. The readings are so much.
Yeah.
That's a very good point.
The readings are getting shorter. You don't really feel you have to read it twice anymore. You're really getting used to the systems of communication. And you keep trying to remember all the things you learned from the Iliad and the Odyssey, but the medium of tragedy is very user-friendly, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
And if I could say the subject of animals and plants, it's something we've already talked about to some extent, but that's going to be a real rich theme for source of metaphors, I guess, for the last, for the tragedies. So that's something people can concentrate on if they want.
Yes, because we've seen how shall I say it, humans misbehave, how animals misbehave, even how plants misbehave, and those metaphors for various kinds of misbehavior all come together in tragedy in a very imaginative way.
Exactly.
Great. Okay, well, we have a lot to look forward to in the next hours. So thank you for joining us today for Office Hours, and I look forward to our time together next week.
Yes.
Thank you, Claudia. Thank you, Keith.
Thanks,
Thank
Greg.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.